In November of 2011, a little game in the Zelda series called Skyward Sword released to audiences worldwide. The series was celebrating its 25th anniversary at the time, and Skyward Sword was the headliner, releasing it with a bundle of Wii remotes, a limited edition CD, and launching an orchestral concert series that lasted almost 6 years. It was a pretty big event, and by all means, Skyward Sword delivered. It received a grade of 93 on Metacritic, and was even awarded Game of the Year from Edge magazine. 2011 was a loaded year too, so this was a crazy achievement. Additionally, the largest gaming site, IGN, even took a poll amongst its users to determine the better game between Ocarina of Time and Skyward Sword, and Skyward absolutely cleared Ocarina.
Votes for the overall winner, The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword. It looks like for this episode, Skyward Sword will be receiving our People's Choice Award.
It's obviously very dated and has recency bias, but it still captures the mood that yet another successful Zelda had come and gone. All was well with the Zelda series. Skyward Sword's legacy, like many Zelda games before, should only improve with time. Things haven't looked so good for Skyward Sword recently. It's not exactly having the legacy we thought it would. IGN recently posted their top 10 best Zelda games list, and Skyward didn't even crack the top 10. It's consistently ranked as the worst 3D Zelda. The director of the entire Zelda series concedes that the latest entries, which stray as far away as possible from traditional Zelda, were direct answers to backlash against Skyward Sword, and proceeded to question why anyone would want to go back to this formula. And when you type in the game title on a search engine, this is the first result that comes up. Yep, for many Zelda fans now, this game blows. There's a laundry list of reasons critics are not fans of this title in retrospect. However, I find that most issues stated are problems also present in previous Zelda games and, quite frankly, nitpicky. But I believe all these issues become valid and exacerbated by two unique problems Skyward Sword possesses that makes it an easy target for fan backlash, the latter causing irreversible change to the franchise. The first issue being famously the one-to-one motion controls. So as to not beat a dead horse, I won't explain why the motion controls are so divisive, but how they are. On a perfectly functioning controller with a digital button layout, when you press any particular button, that button is going to send data to the console and register an input 100% of the time. With Skyward's one-to-one motion control, if you wish to do, let's say, a horizontal slash, there's a non-100% chance this will work. Whether it be an error in calibration on the controller, slashing a few degrees too high and registering an incorrect direction, or the input not registering at all because the player didn't flick their wrist hard enough, those used to a digital button layout working 100% of the time will be frustrated at this non-guaranteed input. Even with natural, unavoidable human error that analog data never encounters, I'd say it still works about 99% of the time. The 1% of the time it doesn't work isn't enough to derail the game, but is just enough to be a nuisance. Still, when the controls do work, they're exceptional, and I truly don't believe they are as big of an issue as our second reason for this game's hate: traditional Zelda fatigue. Considering the current divide in the Zelda fan base over bringing traditional Zelda back, it's odd to think that many fans were growing tired of the formula at Skyward Sword's release, but they truly were. The famous GameSpot review of the game, which was one of the few negative reviews, focused on the then dullness of the series. I would highly recommend looking at the review for a greater understanding of that fatigue. This is very similar to the criticism Tears of the Kingdom received for replicating Breath of the Wild's structure, but instead of a 6-year gap between two games, imagine a 13-year gap between 5 3D Zelda games of relatively similar structure. Almost poetic how similar Tears and Skyward are in this vein. Two games accused of not changing enough in the series, thus creating demand for a different formula. Oh, and disappointing Sky Islands. But by no means does that make either of these games truly bad Zelda games. In isolation, each game brings forward incredible elements that newer fans will find fun, but fans playing the series extensively will feel their respective formulas burn out. In fact, if you listen to the grievances against each respective game, you'll notice their complaints are perfectly remedied by what the other game does right. Fans wanted better dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom, which Skyward arguably has the best of in the series, and critics of Skyward wanted a less linear and more open world, which Tears of the Kingdom, you know. Both of these games are the figureheads for their respective formulas, good and bad. But that begs the question of why Skyward Sword is still disliked to this day. I think that, whether we like to admit it or not, the traditional formula did have its problems. The incessantly nagging companion, lengthy tutorial opening, guided path of dungeon completion, and not having access to the full open world until you were almost finished with the game. That should all sound familiar because all of these flaws are essentially in every single 3D Zelda game. Unfortunately, Skyward Sword is the punching bag for these problems because it proudly embraced the formula just as the fatigue set in. I mean, come on. Did Wind Waker really not have late game padding like Skyward? Did Majora's Mask not make you fight the same boss again and again? Did Twilight Princess not have some pacing issues? And did Ocarina of Time... Oh, wait, that game's perfect. The point still stands that Skyward Sword's quality was what never brought the game down, as I'd argue its quality is on par with some other 3D Zeldas. And, in fact, could be important for the future of the franchise.
Hey!
It's sad to see that a game with arguably the best dungeons, presentation, art style, music, lore, and Zeldas in the series received the legacy it has. Rather than enter the pantheon of 3D Zeldas, it's still an outsider, the fall guy for the traditional formula's flaws. Around every inch and corner of this game, you can tell the Zelda team put everything they had into their efforts. The passion and sincerity in the production value for a game that was essentially running on a GameCube Pro is astonishing. I think it's the perfect swan song to the traditional formula too, and it won't be veteran fans that preserve its legacy. It's going to be new open-air Zelda fans. Thanks to the HD remaster, newer fans whose first game was Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom will and have played this game with fresh eyes and fall in love with it. Protected from veteran fans' traditional Zelda formula burnouts. It's the missing puzzle piece to what open-air Zelda lacks, and once they're older and can participate in dialogue around this game, its legacy will receive a huge boost. I already see this in my community, which primarily consists of newer open-air fans. Ultimately, I think we've reached a pivotal point in the series where open-air Zelda burnout is felt, and the kick the series needs lies within the Zelda game that was passionately and unequivocally itself. You guys are the best. Consider becoming a channel member to play games with me and other members on Fridays. Also, I have another video called New vs. Old Zelda that you can see somewhere, I don't know. And it's arguably better than this one. So, take care. Bye.